Cash App bills itself as the one-stop shop for all of your finance needs. And with their new investing platform, they're hoping to add stocks and crypto to the list. But does their investing platform hold up when compared to other investing apps such as Robinhood, Webull, or M1 Finance? Well, we're gonna put that to the test in this video. Hey everyone, and welcome to FinTech. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Cash App investing, looking at everything from how easy it is to invest using the app, looking at the user interface, and talking about what it either offers or lacks when compared to other investing apps. Now, this video will be focusing primarily on Cash App's investing capabilities, not the ability that it also has to send money to friends, though that is probably the majority of Cash App's real functionality. Also, it's important to note that Cash App is not sponsoring this video. I will include a link in the description, but that will not be an affiliate link. Now, even though I'm not getting paid by Cash App for this video, I hope that you can help me out by just hitting the like button. It helps boost this video in the YouTube algorithm, and it's totally free. So with that said, let's jump straight into the app. So Cash App, like a lot of finance apps, have 5 tabs at the bottom that let you navigate between the different functionalities in the app. But unlike with most investing apps, only one of these tabs actually has to do with investing. The rest have to do with cash management. So at the far left, you have the banking tab where you can link different accounts to your Cash App account, withdraw or deposit money, link a crypto wallet, as well as view what limits are set on your account. The second tab is for the Cash App card, which is a customizable metal debit card. This card lets you spend money directly from your Cash App account, customize it however you want, and oh, did they mention it's made of metal? Third, you have the cash transfer tab where you can either send or receive payments for other people. Fifth, you have the investing tab, and then the last tab here is just any activity that's happened in your account. So for this video, we're going to be focusing pretty much exclusively on this investing tab. So you can tell it's a pretty simple app overall, and so is the investing portion of the app. In fact, it might even be a little bit too simple. You can see the text right at the top of the page here, investing for everybody. This is an app geared to our very general audience and not stock investing professionals. Everything's presented in a very friendly way with these floating cards, and they basically use as few numbers as possible throughout this app. So just to get started here, let's click on one of these floating cards. Let's click this one for Nike here. This is going to bring up the Nike quotes page, which shows how the stock has performed over the past day. I can adjust this chart to show me weekly, monthly, yearly, or all time, and then it's going to recalculate what percentage gain the stock has had in that time. Pretty standard for a stock investing app. I can also buy or sell the stock here. I can either do a standard order, which is basically just a one-time order, or I can set this up to auto-invest for me on a certain basis. So if I wanted to dollar cost average into a stock and say buy $10 of it every week, I can set that up here. The last possible option here is I can set a custom order. What this is really a limit price order, but again, they're trying to make this for a general audience. So you basically drag this line up or down to what price you want the stock to be at. It'll tell you how far away this is from the current stock price, and then if the stock hits that price, it'll purchase the stock for you. Also here, you'll notice this follow-unfollow button. So the reason that this stock showed up in those floating cards at the beginning is because I was following Nike. If I were to unfollow this stock, it will no longer show up in that list of cards. Now, if I keep on going down the page here, we have this section with all these different news articles talking about Nike. If I click one of these, it basically just pulls up a web browser within the app where you can read all these different stories that somehow mention Nike. This is useful for getting quick updates on the stock, but it's not at the level where I would use it for conducting a fundamental analysis. That being said, this next section here, the key stats, is actually pretty useful. They show things like the share price and the market cap, which is very similar to Robinhood if you've seen that, but they also include information that apps like Robinhood don't have, like the revenue over the past 12 months, how much the revenue has grown, what their net profit is. And if I swipe this to the side, I can also see things like their trading volume, their price to equity ratio, etc. Now this is extremely similar to Robinhood. In fact, let me just switch over to Robinhood really quickly to show you how similar. The only real difference here is that Robinhood puts the news below the stats section while Cash App puts it above. Also, the stats in the Robinhood section do not include information like net profit and revenue, while in Cash App, they do include that information, which I actually appreciate. If we go down a little bit farther, there's this quick about section which gives you a summary of the company, tells you what they do, tells you who the CEO is. Not sure what's happening with this manufacturing, apparel, and accessories section. They got some formatting issues there. And then at the bottom, it also tells you what categories this is featured in. So Nike is only featured in the shopping category, which includes all these other apps here. Now, one thing that I kind of skipped over is in the buy orders here, you'll notice that by default, you can set 1, 10, 20, 50, 100, or you can type in a specific number that you want. Again, kind of going along with their whole ideal of making investing for everybody, they don't actually show the stock price of the stock pretty much anywhere except in these key stats sections down here. So if I were to buy $10 in Nike stock, it's going to give me a fractional share in the company. So if Nike were theoretically valued at $100 and I put $10 into the stock, I would own 10% of one share of Nike. Now, most other investing apps do this as well, but it's interesting how much Cash App disconnects the user from the actual stock price. The fact that the only place to see the share price is under key stats and it's not available on the chart anywhere is just an interesting design decision. But let's go back to the main page now. So if we scroll down a little bit more on this page, you can also see just some general stock market news stories that work just like they did in the individual stock, except instead of referring to the specific stock that you have open, these are going to refer to either stocks that you follow or just the general market. If we go a little bit farther down, you can see a list of all the stocks that I am currently following. Now, I didn't add any of these stocks to this list. These were auto-generated, but if I went into, say, Coca-Cola and unfollowed it, it would disappear from that list. I can also sort this list, so instead of sorting it by the daily percentage change, I could say sort it by share price, and then I can see Visa has the highest share price of these stocks. If I scroll down a little bit more, you can also see all these different categories of stocks that I could look into. So let's say I was interested in media and entertainment stocks. If I open this up, here are a list of different stocks that I can invest in that industry. So you have AMC, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook. I don't know if I would classify those as media and entertainment, but I guess Square chooses to do so. Now, if we just quickly go through what's left on this page, you can also see a list of the stocks that have been most traded in the past month. So you can see that AMC, Tesla, and Apple are the top three, followed by Amazon, Nvidia, and Microsoft, followed by some other different stocks. This data is based on these stocks traded specifically in Cash App investing. It doesn't pull information from the broader market, and it's not really talking about trading volume, it's talking about users in this app. If we go down a little bit farther, you can see a list of the biggest daily movers, either up or down. So this company called dLocal went up 14%. If I go over a little bit, you can see that you have Immunity Bio, which is down almost 7%. And all these other stocks which have made moves in the past day. And then finally, if I go all the way to the bottom, there's this little card here called My First Stock. If I open this up, this is basically going to try to teach new investors about stock investing. As you go through this, it tries to give you a very, very friendly version of stock investing, basically using all these bright pictures talking about how stock investing actually works and how it involves actually owning a piece of a company. It's very, very basic, and it doesn't really go into details of investing in specific stocks. And I would say it's kind of presented at like a middle school level if you were just introducing students to the idea of stock investing. But now if I go back to the top of this app, let's go through this as if I was gonna buy a stock. So realistically, I'm not just gonna click on one of these cards here. I'm gonna search discover a stock, and I might search by a category, so I might go to technology stocks, or I might search by a specific ticker or name. So let's say I wanted to invest in Microsoft. I could type that in here, it'll come up, and then I have the page right here where I can invest. Or if I didn't want to invest in a specific stock, I can also invest in ETFs in this app. So let's say I wanted to invest in the Vanguard short-term, oh, that's a bad one. Let's say I wanted to invest in the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. I could do that here. I could set a buy order to buy me, let's say every 2 weeks, I could invest $10 into this ETF and I would just track the general stock market. And then of course, the other option that we have here, if we go back to the home screen, is instead of stocks, we can also invest in Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is the only crypto currently being offered on here. But if I wanted to, I could click buy here. I can set the same amount that I wanted to before. I can set this to be daily, weekly, or every 2 weeks. It's kind of unfortunate you can't set monthly or a custom time period, but maybe that functionality will be added later. It's not a huge issue. It's just something that I would like to see. One other thing with Bitcoin specifically is you have to connect some kind of wallet if you want to deposit Bitcoin or extract it from this account. So depending how seriously you want to invest in Bitcoin, that may be something you'd want to consider. The rest of this is pretty similar to the stock investing. You again have stories regarding Bitcoin. You can see the price here, you can see the symbol. And then they also have this option here called Bitcoin Boost. Now I mentioned earlier that Cash App produces a debit card. You can set it up so that when you spend money on that debit card, you get Bitcoin in return. Now, based on my research into this, it looks like you can only get $7.50 per transaction in Bitcoin. So if you spent $150, you would get $7.50 back in the form of Bitcoin. And you can only do that 3 total times. So in total, you could only get, what is that, $22.50? So that's not going to give you the same kind of rewards that you get from, say, a high rewards credit card. And all of that is going to be taxable as cryptocurrencies earned, versus with a credit card where I'm actually not sure if you report your points to the IRS or not. Ask your tax accountant for that. And then again, at the bottom of the screen here, you have My First Bitcoin, where it kind of walks you through a story of what Bitcoin is. And this is just, you know, your friendly, everyday Disney animation style talking to 3-year-olds about how they can gamble their money on cryptos. It looks great. But in all seriousness, if you don't know anything about Bitcoin, this actually does a pretty good job of explaining where the history of Bitcoin comes from and what it actually does. It is kind of nice to have. It's just interesting that they present it as if it's being presented to children. Really, the last feature that's worth talking about in here is the notification section. So I can set it so that I'm notified about upcoming stock reports for stocks that I own or stocks that I just follow. And I can also set it to alert me when the stock price moves up or down by a set amount. So by default it's 5%, but if I want to set that to 10%, I could get alerts for that as well. So it's a pretty simple investing app, and simplicity can be a good thing. It's not like Webull, where beginners can quickly get confused by all the numbers on the screen and all the different sub-menus that you can dive into and quickly get lost. But at the same time, the simplicity of this app can come with some drawbacks. First off is just the process of funding your account. You might have noticed that I didn't actually buy any stocks while I was going through this, and that's because I wasn't able to put any money into Cash App. You see, when you sign up for Cash App, you are able to link a bank account, and like with most investing apps, I assumed that once you linked a bank account, you could transfer money into the app. That actually does not work with Cash App. You have to link a debit card. Theoretically, you could also fund your account by having another Cash App user send you some money, but I also don't know anybody who uses Cash App, so that doesn't help me either. The other thing to note is that there is somewhat limited stock availability in this app. Now, even though it looks like they have a huge number of offerings, they have all these different categories with all these different stocks available in them, their website shows that they only actually offer 1,000 total stocks that you can invest in. Now, I've looked through a bunch of different stocks on here, and I've yet to find one that I was looking for that I couldn't find in this app. But theoretically, if you're investing in smaller, lesser known companies, you might struggle to find them in here. Square, the company that runs Cash App, is planning on adding more stocks continually over the future, but their plan is to focus primarily on stocks that are listed on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ that have valuations of over $1 billion or daily trading volumes over $5 million. Another important thing to note is that this entire investing platform, while part of the Cash App app and the UI is built by Cash App, the actual APIs that are running this that complete the transactions are actually built by a different company called DriveWealth. The reason that's important is because DriveWealth does disclose that they sometimes accept payment for order flow. So essentially, a high frequency trader will pay them some amount of money to execute your trades. Now, the whole pros and cons behind this can be a little bit complicated, but I made a whole separate video on this talking about why Robinhood is selling your trades to dark pools. So if you want to dive deeper into the whole dark, murky world of payment for order flow, you can check out that video there. The other big limitation, which you probably noticed as I was going through, is that you're only allowed to invest in 3 types of assets using this app. There's stocks and Bitcoin, which you can obviously tell at the top of the screen, and the other is ETFs, like the VTI ETF from Vanguard. What that means is you can't invest in other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum or Dogecoin, you can't invest in options, you can't invest in bonds. You're really limited to just these basic types of investments. This contrasts with other investing apps like Robinhood or Webull, which do let you invest in options. Now, whether or not investing in options is a good idea for beginner investors, probably not. But at the same time, it's nice to have the option to invest in options. Another important thing to note here is the sign-up bonus that you're going to get from using Cash App. When you sign up for Cash App, you will get $5 deposited into your account. The problem is you don't necessarily get to keep that $5. If I go over here to the activity section of this app, you can see that I have this invitation bonus here for trying Cash App. But if I click on that, you can see that there's an action required. That action requires that I both link a bank account and send $5 to somebody else on Cash App. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know anybody else who uses Cash App, which means that in 10 days, this reward is going to expire for me, and I'll effectively get nothing for signing up for the app. But even if I did get paid that $5, that's still not as much as I could earn in a free stock from Robinhood, or the much higher payouts from Webull, where I would get 2 free stocks, or M1 Finance, where I would get $30 if I deposited $100. So outside of those kind of big ticket items, even some of the smaller details of this app just aren't quite as polished as a more mature investing app like, say, Robinhood. For example, if I open up a stock in Cash App, it's not going to show me what the daily price is anywhere on this screen unless I switch the chart to specifically show the one-day change. This is different in Robinhood, where if I scroll down and it has all these different news articles covering the stock, These news articles will actually pull out the names of stocks in that article and show their daily performance highlighted in either orange or green. That's one of the kind of weird quirks of Cash App investing is right now you can see for McDonald's it's down 0.7% and it's highlighted red. But it's not highlighted red because it went down, it's actually pulling that color from the logo of the company. So if I were to look at, say, Disney, you can see that the stock price is blue. It doesn't actually care whether or not it goes up or down, it just pulls the color based on the company's logo, which I personally don't like. I like to be able to tell at a glance if the stock is up or down. And unfortunately, Cash App doesn't really have any kind of customization where I can change that setting. In fact, overall in this app, there's very little customization. You can change this list of stocks that you're following, and you can change the stock notifications you receive, and that's pretty much it. That's a big contrast to, I guess, more professional investing apps like Webull, where you can do things like change the theme of the app from bright to dark to black, and you can even change how quotes are displayed, going from red and green to red and yellow to gray, or a whole bunch of other options. Now for some people, they might prefer all the defaults that Cash App has, but for me personally, I would like to have some kind of choice. So overall, what do I think of this app? Well, it's not a bad app. It works for certain people. For example, if I was already a Cash App customer and all my friends used Cash App and that's how we sent money back and forth to each other, or if I used Cash App as basically my debit card, it would probably make sense for me to just go ahead and use Cash App investing if I were a beginner investor. But if you don't already use Cash App on a daily basis, I don't really think that it makes sense to download this app specifically for its investing capabilities. The fact is, it's easier to get started on other apps like Robinhood or Webull, and they offer way more functionality than you're gonna get here. Maybe one of the differentiators here you could argue is the fact that they have this education section here where they go through my first stock, but even then, that education section is pretty minimal, and that education doesn't compare whatsoever to Beanstox, which is Kevin O'Leary's investing app, which is really focused entirely on education, and they have tons of different articles that walk you through the process. So basically, if I were an absolute beginner, I would use Beanstox. If I were somewhere in the middle, I would probably use Robinhood, and if I was more advanced, I would use Webull. There's really no room in that lineup for Cash App investing. But that's not a knock against Cash App or Square, the company that runs Cash App, because they're not trying to compete with other investing apps. They're trying to compete with other platforms like PayPal or Venmo. And in that case, having the ability to invest right there is kind of a useful feature. After all, if we look at Square's ticker symbol, that company is worth over $100 billion with a share price at $237, so I think they're doing okay. But with that said, let me know if you personally use Cash App, and if you do, if you also use Cash App investing. If you'd like to take advantage of one of those higher redemption sign-up bonuses that I talked about earlier, Webull is going to give you 2 free stocks when you deposit $100, or if you don't want to deposit any money, they'll still give you 1 free stock anyway. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.